Dalton rehearsal tape starting at 5, 4, 3, 1.
Whoop. Here I come.
Oh.
Here I come.
Oh.
Okay, you fucking horse's ass. Let's get you over to wardrobe. What the fuck was that?
K-Billy's super sounds of the 70s weekend just keeps on trucking.
Quentin Tarantino never rushed back into the director's chair, but rather wrote for pleasure and carefully prepared for new projects.
100%.
For decades in his free time, the author would jot ideas down for a future novel, which he never planned on publishing. It was a simple story he used to exercise his style, and at the same time tell the story of Los Angeles in the late 1960s. A carefree time in Quentin's youth, yet packed with events for Hollywood. The text sparkled with hundreds of references to famous personalities working in that dream world, and created a world filled with homages and quotes.
The fuck are you talking about?
Hundreds of pages of random notes with unconnected scenes turned into the script of his 9th film while shooting Inglourious Bastards.
I was part of Operation Kino from the very beginning as a double agent.
One of the members of the star-studded cast who Quentin wished to remain anonymous asked him to hire his stunt double. They had worked together for 20 years. Despite the fact that the stunt didn't require a double, the director agreed, and when he saw the pair on set, he realized that this was probably their last job together. They probably once looked so close to each other, you could do a close-up on the stuntman. But that was not the case anymore. Quentin was amazed by the sadness and melancholy of the duet. The unavoidable finale of their relationship inspired him to create the main characters for his future film about Hollywood. In the 60s, these people were basking in fame. The public considered them to be the stars of cinema and television. And they had no idea that in a few years, they would be replaced with hundreds of talented, ungroomed, bearded men who would exchange horses and whiskey for motorcycles and marijuana.
Head out on the highway, looking for...
This is how the main idea for his future movie appeared. That breaking point in the history of American cinematography. The waning of the golden era. The revolution of film schools in the apogee of that period. The terrible murder of Sharon Tate by the Manson family.
In California, 5 members of a so-called religious cult, including Charles Manson, the guru or high priest, have been indicted in the murder of Sharon Tate and 6 others.
When Quentin finished developing their characters, the duet and their backstory seemed so interesting to him that he was considering filming them without a plot. They were remarkable people whose routine would entertain the viewer even without the typical twists and turns. So in 2016, after the promo tour of Hateful Eight and a few award ceremonies, Tarantino seriously started casting for his next picture. At the same time, his longtime friend Harvey Weinstein found himself at the center of the biggest sex scandal in the USA.
Harvey, are you sorry?
The lawsuits continued till the 11th of March 2020, when Harvey was found guilty and sentenced to 23 years in prison. Despite the moral aspect and societal resonance, the event affected the typical methods of Quentin's filmmaking. Every picture made by Tarantino had been produced by Harvey's studio, but because of the scandal, the director had to find new investors.
Why should that surprise anybody? When the hell has America, ever been fair? We might be right every once in a while, but we're very rarely fair.
Several studios bid for the project, including Warner Brothers, Paramount, and Sony. The last studio provided the best conditions. And it wasn't just the $95 million budget. Complete artistic freedom, control over final edits, or the 20% share of the clean profit. The main point of the contract stated that 20 years after its release, Quentin would receive the rights to the picture. It was these unprecedented conditions that allowed Quentin to bring to life risky ambitions. Besides this, the director chose Sony in part because of their previous partnership. In 2012, the studio received the rights to the international release of Django Unchained, and thanks to its involvement, the movie became the most profitable of Tarantino's career. This step also made their relationship come full circle. Quentin returned to Sony after 20 years had passed since they had declared his script too violent and refused to invest in Pulp Fiction.
They look like a couple of dorks.
Weinstein's shoes were filled by David Heyman, who worked on the Harry Potter franchise and the Oscar-winning Gravitation. And though David had dozens of successful projects under his belt, he said that his time working with Quentin was one of the best periods of his career.
It was about as much fun as I've ever had on any movie in my life. The crew is his family.
But let's get back to casting. The director dreamed of snaring Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt from the first drafts of the script. Quentin had often called this duo the greatest stars of our time, and didn't believe that he would be able to convince both of them to play. Because of this, from the very early production stages, the project was associated with Tom Cruise, who had a shot at playing Cliff Booth.
Fair enough.
Luckily, both Leo and Brad agreed to unite with Tarantino, and even agreed to considerable financial sacrifices, cutting their usual salaries to $10 million. After signing the contract, Quentin dubbed the duet the new Robert Redford and Paul Newman. Their charisma strongly brought to mind the Western Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
You're starting to get on my nerves. Who are those guys?
A few years later, the actors would be extremely complimentary of each other and promised that they would work together on screen again.
Well, I just figured we would. I got a six-pack in the back, thought we'd order a pizza. All right.
The trio of main characters was completed by Margot Robbie, who played Sharon Tate. When Quentin had chosen the actors for the main roles, he invited them to his house and had a reading of the script. There was only one copy of the text which never left his house. After his first version of Hateful Eight had been stolen, Tarantino became seriously paranoid about another leak and kept all the details of his project secret.
What are you reading?
Just a Western.
And there were a lot of details. Margot Robbie's character was based on the real Sharon Tate, but the prototypes of Rick and Cliff were not so obvious.
Goddamn right.
Dalton embodies a generation of stars from Wild West TV series, which became spaghetti westerns.
You ever seen an Italian Western? Huh? They're awful. It's a fucking fart.
I don't think it's nice you laughing.
Rick is loosely associated with Ty Hardin, who Quentin called a poor copy of Steve McQueen.
Afraid there's some folks who wouldn't quite agree with you.
Ralph Meeker and Pete Duel. Duel, like Dalton, was the star of a TV Western who had a drinking problem. Lost his license as the result of a drunk driving accident.
Rick got his driver's license taken away for too many drunk driving tickets. Cliff drives him everywhere now.
And whose stunt double was Pete's part-time chauffeur.
Rick, I'm your driver, man. I'm your gopher. I'm not complaining, man. I like driving you around.
Booth is a mixture of Gary Kent, who had shot at Spahn Ranch before the Manson family had settled there, and Gene LaBelle, who landed a role in the series The Green Hornet after the other stuntmen refused to work with Bruce Lee because of the constant beatings. In Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the martial arts star was played by Mike Moe, and the scene itself caused mixed reactions.
Did I say something funny, stuntman?
Yeah, you kind of did.
What's so funny?
Lee's family criticized the portrayal, while the Chinese government required that the scene be deleted in order for the movie to be released in the People's Republic. But Tarantino refused to censor it. In fact, the scene is based on a historical undertone. LaBelle was called in to calm Lee down, who used to provoke the stuntman and defended his actions by saying it made the scenes more beautiful.
Come on, man. You don't believe that old shit, do you?
Using wrestling moves, Gene overcame Lee in a fight.
Let me just say, nobody beat the shit out of Bruce.
Later, Gene befriended Bruce, and over the course of a year would show him how to resist similar holds. They incorporated the resulting moves into Lee's fighting style. The result of their training sessions can be seen in the fight with Chuck Norris in The Way of the Dragon, and with the young Sammo Hung in Enter the Dragon. LaBelle became Bruce's favorite stuntman because he never complained about the ferocity of the hits. This reference doesn't sully the memory of Kung Fu legends, but reminds us that we are all ordinary people and that conflicts often lead to mutual respect.
It was a friendly contest. He barely touched me.
I think that dent in the car says something different.
The relationship between the main characters, however, is an homage to the friendship of Bert Reynolds and his stunt double Hal Needham, who lived in the actor's guest house for 12 years and later became the highest paid stuntman in Hollywood. And the TV series which brought fame to Rick Dalton is based on Wanted Dead or Alive, where the main character is played by Steve McQueen.
Bounty Law. Starring Rick Dalton.
It was because of this comparison that DiCaprio almost got a role in The Great Escape.
Never had a chance.
10 days isolation hills.
Captain Hills.
20 days.
McQueen's name also made it into the list of celebrities who were supposed to be killed by Charles Manson. On the 8th of August, 1969, Steve almost went to Sharon Tate's house, but had a change of plan at the last minute. McQueen also makes an appearance in Tarantino's film and was played by Damian Lewis.
I never stood a chance.
The aforementioned Bert Reynolds was portrayed by James Marsden.
Would you take a bite of a red apple?
Oh, you bet I would.
But the scene was cut because of the unexpected death of Reynolds. The actor died on the 6th of September, 2018, a few weeks before Quentin's movie began shooting. Bert had been diligently preparing for filming and even helped to tweak the screenplay. The line about Cliff's appearance was a hint from Reynolds.
Stuntman.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of pretty for a stuntman.
That's what they tell me.
Brad didn't like the idea of mentioning the handsomeness of his character, but believed that Bert knew the Hollywood of that time too well to argue with him. Because of the tragic event, Reynolds was replaced with Bruce Dern, whom Quentin had worked with in Hateful Eight.
No, Jesus Christ. Everyone don't need a stuntman.
The role of Marvin Schwartz, which was based on a popular producer of westerns who worked with Burt Reynolds, was written by Quentin exclusively for Al Pacino.
Hello, Mr. Schwartz.
Oh, Gina. I have a meeting with a very handsome cowboy man.
At first, he created the dialogue in the restaurant as a part of a one-act play, but the scene fit perfectly in the narrative.
Ping, pow, zoom, zoom.
By the way, Schwartz's love for the 14 Fists of McCluskey was a reference to The Godfather, where a policeman of the same last name breaks Michael Corleone's jaw.
Take a hold of him. Stand him up. Stand him up straight.
Of course, one could talk about the references in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for almost longer than it takes to watch the film. But let's return to 2018. While he was choosing actors, Quentin was also choosing a team that would be able to bring to life his childhood memories of Los Angeles. The man who was responsible for the camera was his irreplaceable companion, Robert Richardson, who has been working with Tarantino for more than 15 years. The production design, however, Quentin entrusted to a new person to his team, a fellow LA local.
What was great is how much Quentin and I both saw the same things.
What's good is that I'm older than Quentin, so when he'd say, "Remember this?" I'd go, "No, that wasn't on that street, that was over in Westwood." And he'd go, "Oh, yeah. I had a much better memory because he was like 8 or something and I was 17.
Barbara Ling had risen to fame thanks to her partnership with Joel Schumacher. And 27 years before Quentin's proposal, she and Robert Richardson had immersed themselves in the 60s when working on Oliver Stone's The Doors.
If I was to say to you, girl, I couldn't get much higher.
Working with Tarantino allowed her to recreate the city of her youth. The picture doesn't depict Los Angeles with 100% accuracy, but is a slightly exaggerated version of the memories of that time. Nonetheless, you can feel the attention to detail in every scene, beginning with the fonts, advertisements, and posters, and ending with the architecture. Barbara restored the facades of dozens of theaters.
The full original look, the original neon, the exact movie of that date is actually what's on the marquee that was playing there.
Restaurants and diners. There was only one Taco Bell with the original design intact in the whole city. And despite the fact that it appears on screen for only a few seconds, the building was restored with archaeological precision. Another obstacle was convincing the shop owners on Hollywood Boulevard, who didn't want to change the appearance of their facades.
If you do a Hollywood Boulevard closure, you have to have pretty much 100% of the merchants on board.
However, after shooting, the owners left the historical restorations that Barbara had created.
Yeah, it was exciting to let the lights blink again on Hollywood Boulevard.
One can also see the attention to detail in the interior of the bookstore, where they even printed books with covers true to that period. They also used the actual Maltese falcon from the film of the same name.
I'm here to pick up the first edition of Thomas Hardy's Test of the D'Urbervilles I ordered. It's under Polanski.
Also, Sharon buying the book Test of the D'Urbervilles was not a coincidence. The last time that Roman Polanski saw Tate alive, she gave him that book saying that it would make a great movie, and she'd be happy to play in it. 10 years later, Polanski brought the novel to the screen and dedicated the picture to his deceased wife. The most difficult place to shoot was the Playboy Mansion. After the death of Hugh Hefner, it was purchased by a new owner who didn't want to let a bunch of set designers and hundreds of extras on the property. However, Ling and Tarantino spent almost a half a year in negotiations to get access to the front drive and the backyard, which looked like they'd teleported back in time 50 years ago. But Quentin's favorite location was Spahn Ranch. One of the best sets I ever had of any of my movies was rebuilding the Spahn Ranch. And we did a wonderful job casting those gals. It's scary, and it is creepy. We're not doing anything to make anything scary or creepy. It just is. It's a wonderful alchemy we captured, and I didn't break the mood. This scene showed Quentin's ability to incorporate classic film achievements into his movies. The famous scene depicting the attack of a village in Apocalypse Now is edited so that after the helicopters appear, they appear in every scene after, at least in the background. Tarantino uses this same move at the Spahn Ranch, although instead of Hueys, there are dogs running around in the background. Also, the barking never stops for a second. Besides this, some of the decorations are allusions to Quentin's previous films. The wall at the airport is identical to the one at the beginning of Jackie Brown. And the town used in the TV show Bounty Law is the same street used in Django Unchained. Barbara's touch is obvious in every scene. In her attention to detail, the production designer was second only to Tarantino.
Oh my God, yes, yes.
This era was also recreated thanks to the Oscar-winning Nancy Hay, who had worked with the Coen brothers, Tim Burton, Steven Spielberg, and Woody Allen, as well as costume designer Ariane Phillips.
The best way to describe my job, a costume designer job, is being a character detective.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Ariane's job was a lot harder than it might seem. She had to recreate the looks of real people, from Sharon Tate and Roman Polanski to members of the Manson family. Then she had to insert into this world 2 fictional characters. The costume often reveals the psychology behind the characters. Rick preferred old-fashioned clothes and was stuck in the 50s, the time when his career had reached its peak and the future didn't have a rain cloud in sight. Cliff dressed more simply and was in step with fashion, which shows that he was a person open to new things. By the way, after he gets back from Italy, Dalton's wardrobe changes. After all, he had made a small fortune, and you can tell by his appearance that he had gone shopping in Europe. Phillips also traversed another difficult obstacle. For every flashback or scene taking place on set, they had to create a wardrobe that imitated the costumes which were sewn in the 60s.
Anybody order fried sauerkraut?
Filming started in June of 2018 in Los Angeles.
Back to what? Why? Because we love making movies!
The opening scenes of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are full of Tarantino's beloved illusions. While he was searching for a location, the director visited the house of Lee Van Cleef, who had a gigantic portrait of himself hanging in his garage. This design element both intrigued and unsettled Tarantino, and he immediately added a similar element to the parking lot at Rick's house. By the way, Van Cleef is a star from films directed by Sergio Leone, whom Tarantino believes to be the best maker of spaghetti westerns in history. It was Leone's work which gave him the idea for the film's title.
I've seen enough, all right? Nobody likes spaghetti westerns.
Dalton's Cadillac belongs to Michael Madsen. He had also ridden in it during Reservoir Dogs, but this time the car got more screen time than him. Madsen got a role thanks to a joke. On the set of Hateful Eight, Madsen commented that in each of their movies, his character always dies. To counter, Quentin incorporated Michael into an episode of Bounty Law, where the actor finally stayed alive.
Yeah, well, you know, most people just ain't partial to seeing dead bodies.
The beginning of the picture shows Sharon Tate with Roman Polanski, who is played by Rafael Zararuja.
Oh, fuck you, Dr. Saperstein.
Tarantino admitted that he didn't contact Polanski, but limited himself to Sharon's sister, Deborah. In the early stages, he shared the script with her and got advice about how to portray the actress. Deborah also brought Sharon's jewelry to the set, which Margot wears to the party. After the film was released, some of the viewers were disappointed that one of the main characters of the story had so few lines and less than 5 minutes of screen time. Tarantino explained that he had shown everything exactly as he had planned, and was even irritated with the people who thought that a character's importance to the plot had anything to do with the number of lines in the script. Tate's appearance was a moment of light and happiness in life.
That's great.
One of the most key moments is when Margot Robbie, playing Tate, watches footage of the real Sharon on screen, and the viewer is watching her, watching Sharon. 3 levels demonstrating the magic of film.
I think it's a magical scene. I don't mean because I'm a magician. I mean, I think the ladies in this make it magical.
There are some feet in this scene, but the dirty heels of the actress are not just Tarantino's fetish, but rather historical fact. Sharon hated shoes and preferred to walk barefoot. She even sometimes wore rubber bands around her ankles to make it look like she was wearing flip-flops when entering a restaurant. But let's get back to the set, where the scope of Tarantino's ideas was wowing the producers. The director avoided computer graphics, and even Cliff's trips didn't have any CGI. The highways were filled with retro cars and were closed off for 4 hours at a time. No one in Hollywood had done that in the last decade.
That's not the case, and you know it.
CGI was only used in the scene from The Great Escape, when Dalton replaced Steve McQueen. Even the fake drive-in near Cliff's home was filmed using miniatures. And of course, the viewer would have recognized some familiar music from the director's previous films, and from the era of drive-in movies. Quentin's enthusiasm was contagious when led to the car manager Stephen Butcher to get access to a Ford Galaxy, which was used by the members of the Manson family and enabled him to create an exact copy.
So we replicated the car exact. So all the rust, all the dents, everything are almost exact on that car.
What the hell do you think you're doing bringing that noisy hunk of shit around here at midnight?
Another car which Butcher was lucky enough to find was an army truck from the TV show The FBI. Stephen found the exact model used in the episode All the Streets Are Silent from 40 years ago. He washed it, gave it a new paint job, and brought it to the film crew.
That was a smooth lead.
By the way, the movie used the real opening titles of the show, where they added Leo in.
With guest stars, James Ferrantino, Rick Dalton.
Woo! In the original episode, the villain was played by Bert Reynolds. Robert Richardson said that the highlight of his career was filming the scene in the restaurant where he captured DiCaprio, Pitt, and Pacino in one frame.
Oh, is that your son?
No, that's my stunt double, Cliff Booth, yeah.
During this conversation, there are a few flashbacks, including the song Green Door, which was only Leonardo's 3rd attempt at singing in front of the camera.
Pull the mask off the old Lone Ranger and you don't mess around with Jim.
My flying machine and it's up she goes, up she goes.
It's an old piano and they play it hot behind the green door.
Also, Leonardo's genuine reaction to the flamethrower.
Yeah, that's right. All right, that's too hot. Anything we can do about that heat?
Rick, it's a flamethrower.
Yeah.
Another improvisation was Cliff Booth's phrase.
You're Rick fucking Dalton. Don't you forget it.
A phrase which Pitt himself heard at the dawn of his own career. In the mid-90s, the actor had a tag-along acquaintance whom Brad would characterize as your average freeloader. He was of absolutely no use except for the fact that when Pitt would start to complain about the setbacks in his career, the guy would say to him,
"Hey man, don't forget. You're Brad fucking Pitt." And you know what? It soothed me. It soothed me.
Rick fucking Dalton.
DiCaprio was surprised by how difficult the role of Dalton was for him.
Whoa, whoa. Hey.
I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that.
Here, put these on.
Playing a mediocre actor turned out to be much harder than he anticipated.
Amateurs try and take men in alive. Amateurs usually don't make it.
Something which helped him to enliven the character was adding a memory problem.
Damn it, I fucked this whole thing up. Sam, I did. I fucked this whole thing up. Can we just go back, please? Can we just cut? Can we just cut?
Tarantino hadn't written that in the script, but Leo insisted that they film a version including that aspect. Later, he improvised the nervous breakdown in the trailer.
I practiced them, and now I don't look like I goddamn practiced them. You're sitting there like a fucking baboon.
At first, the director didn't like the idea, but later he added it to the picture because he thought that detail helped to deeper understand the character's problem with alcohol.
Stop fucking drinking.
This scene was based on the pilot episode of Lancer, and besides Dalton, all the characters were from there.
Long time, Johnny Madrid.
Yeah, long time.
Care for a drink?
Yeah, sure.
After you, take out two.
Pepe! Get your behind that bar, I have a guess.
Sam Wanamaker was portrayed by Nicholas Hammond, who had begun his career in the 60s.
I'm Friedrich. I'm 14. I'm impossible.
Absolutely fantastic. I loved it.
While the main heroes of the show, Johnny Madrid and Scott Lancer, were played by Timothy Oliphant and Luke Perry.
My valise, please. Good man.
On set, DiCaprio spent a few hours with Luke talking about the Hollywood of his childhood. In the 90s, DiCaprio believed that Perry was the modern-day James Dean and the biggest star of television.
Okay.
Unfortunately, on the 4th of March 2019, Luke died from a heart attack. The depiction of Lancer would become his last appearance on screen. In a tragic coincidence, 4 months before that, Wayne Maunder passed away, the actor who played Lancer in the original television show. There are more allusions to Quentin's films among the characters.
You know my wife, Janet, don't you? Yeah.
Steer clear of her.
The married stunt coordinators played by Zoe Bell and Kurt Russell hint at Death Proof, where Bell played herself.
Agility, reflexes, nimbleness. There's few human beings that can fuck with Zoe on that front.
Oh, Kim, I like you too.
Since before that, she had become famous as Uma Thurman's double in the Kill Bill Dilogy. And Kurt played Stuntman Mike.
I've been running so long.
Russell also lent his voice to narrate Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Around 10, Sharon and her friends left El Coyote and arrived back at her house.
The actor knew of the story not just from hearsay. The young Julia Butlers epitomized all the children of Hollywood.
It's the actor's job to strive for 100% effectiveness. Naturally, we never succeed, but it's the pursuit.
In the 60s, Russell often played similar roles, but unlike thousands of his competitors, he was able to fasten himself firmly on the film industry.
Call me Snake.
Kurt is the only child TV actor whose career is flourishing to this day. At 69, the actor continues to participate in A-list movies.
Hey, Randy. Cliff.
Another reference to the children is the girl who sells Cliff the special cigarette.
You smoke it, it gets you high.
How much?
50 cents.
More than 10 years ago, Pearl Haney Jardine played Bibi in Kill Bill Volume 2.
Freeze, Mommy.
Bang, bang. Oh.
Each character is important in the narrative, but Charles Manson and his family were unusual antagonists. They were pure evil personified.
Can almost taste it now. Oh, it's sweet as wine.
Damon Herman played the head of the popular Hollywood sect twice that year, playing in Tarantino's film and also in David Fincher's TV show.
Let's talk about August 9th, 1969.
That is gone in the past, and when it is gone, it is gone, brother.
He only appeared for a few minutes in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Another scene with Charlie was left on the editing table.
Oh, gosh dang it. Damn it.
Looks like I came all the way down here for nothing.
Much more time was given to Margaret Qualley, who played Pussycat.
Want me to stop your car while driving?
Pussycat lured men to Spahn Ranch, where they were either robbed or initiated into the sect.
Man.
Allie's gonna dig you.
Dakota Fanning also found a spot in the family.
You back there?
Door at the end of the hallway.
As well as 3 representatives of Hollywood dynasties. Harley Quinn Smith, the daughter of Kevin Smith. Mia Hawke, the daughter of Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman.
Shit. Sorry, I forgot my knife in the car. Can I go back and get it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And Rumer Willis, the daughter of Bruce Willis and Demi Moore. But before we get to the finale and the main appearance of the Manson family, we should mention the trip to Italy, where Rick not only acts in a film directed by Quentin's beloved Sergio Corbucci.
Sergio who?
Sergio Corbucci.
Hey, who's that?
The second best director of spaghetti westerns in the whole wide world.
But also by Antonio Margheriti.
Spaghetti secret agent James Bond ripoff type flick called Operazione Dynamite, directed by Antonio Margheriti.
Margheriti.
This was not just a reference to Inglourious Basterds, but the name of a popular Italian director whose career was just getting started in the 70s.
You face the judge and he won't be.
Dalton returns from his trip with a wife in tow.
And his brand spanking new Italian wife, starlet Francesca Capucci.
Francesca Capucci was played by Lorenza Izzo, the wife of Eli Roth, Tarantino's longtime friend who acted in Death Proof and Inglourious Basterds. Another interesting scene is the one in the plane where Margot Robbie is a stewardess.
Well, it looks delicious.
Enjoy, sir.
Which is a reference to the TV show Pan America, where the actress had one of the main roles. All the flights in that film are operated exclusively by that airline. Another reference is provided by the scene right before the finale, where Sharon Tate is talking with Jay Sebring.
What's going on at the Dirty Movie Place?
Well, they're having a premiere.
Dirty movies have premieres?
Yeah, they're fun.
The movie theater that the characters are talking about belongs to Quentin and is called the New Beverly. It no longer plays erotic films, but rather the director's favorite pictures. Tarantino often appears there and writes reviews or articles which are published on the theater's website. Summaries of the old films and critiques of directors are just another way to touch the surface of the layers of knowledge in his head.
It's fascinating. He's a genius, you know. I mean, a once in every 50 or 100 years kind of genius.
What are you, 12?
Well, we can't talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood without mentioning the finale.
Around midnight, a completely drunk Rick Dalton started making a blender of frozen margaritas.
There are many spoilers ahead, so continue watching only if you've seen the film.
Why not?
The culmination begins with the appearance of the foursome from the Manson family. In Quentin's interpretation, Mia Hawke's character gets cold feet and runs away, although in real life Linda Kasabian stays in the car. Later, her testimony helped to convict Tex Watson, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Susan Atkins in court.
All were found guilty of murder in the first degree.
Tex introduces himself to Cliff using the phrase which he said when he entered Tate's home.
I'm the devil, and I'm here to do the devil's business.
What unfolds next is possibly the goriest scene in all of Tarantino's filmography. For a director having a track record like he does, that's saying something. Sadie, by the way, the character for which Tarantino reserved with the worst death, was the most bloodthirsty member of the sect. The main star of this butchery is a pit bull named Sayuri, who played Booth's faithful companion. The dog eclipsed the acting of the whole ensemble. And a year later, Quentin received a palm leaf at Cannes on her behalf, an award reserved for the best four-legged actors.
But it wasn't until I was editing the movie that I realized, hey, she's kind of a good actress.
You understand? All right.
When the characters finish with the Manson followers, music from the western The Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean comes on. This is worth noting because at the beginning of that film appear the words, "Maybe this isn't the way it was. It's the way it should have been."
Hi, Rick. Hi. Oh, it's so nice to finally meet you.
Once again, Tarantino used the finale to rewrite history. Last time he eradicated the Nazis, and this time he not only saved the lives of Sharon and her friends, but also the era of peace and love. The violence of the Manson family put an end to the trends of long hair and going barefoot. After the lawsuit against the murderers, no one wanted to look like a hippie.
Today, the magic is gone. Aimless and disorganized, the hippies have fallen prey to their own free spirit. Free drugs and too much free publicity have gradually corrupted them.
Fucking hippie motherfuckers.
So instead of the usual story based on real events, where the viewer is filled with grief at the looming ending, Quentin got even with the villains. He got his revenge on the violent killings and terror which fettered Hollywood and brought an end to a happy, carefree childhood.
Is everybody okay?
Well, the fucking hippies aren't. That's for goddamn sure. Yeah.
Tarantino finished filming his magnum opus on the 1st of November 2018. But before he could start editing, he got married to Daniela Peake. They had a simple ceremony in Beverly Hills, and later a banquet for their closest friends. By the way, Daniela has a cameo in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, playing Rick's co-star while he's working in Italy.
In Rome, Rick loved the paparazzi and the fuss they made over him and his Nebraska Jim co-star Daphne Ben-Kobo.
Right there, paparazzi.
The first version of the film, edited by Fred Raskin, was over 4 hours long. But Quentin wanted a dynamic film, so over the next year he cut the time in 2. Hundreds of minutes were left on the editing table, and several characters were removed altogether. That's why the premiere did not include the appearances of Danny Strong, the aforementioned James Marston, or Tim Roth on screen. Die-hard fans harbor the hope that one day they will see all the deleted scenes, since Quentin promised to release the full version of the picture a year or 2 after the initial release in movie theaters.
Holy shit.
So far, it's unclear whether it will be in the form of a miniseries or the longest full-feature film in 50 years.
I hope so.
The director also dreamed of turning the screenplay into a novel, but I don't think it will get published anytime soon.
Yeah, sorry about that.
The premiere of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood occurred on the 22nd of July, 2019. The showing ended with Deborah Tate in tears, thanking Margot Robbie, who had brought Sharon back to life 50 years after her tragic death. Over the next 3 months, the picture made over $300 million at the box office, the second most profitable in Quentin's career after Django Unchained.
It was a pleasure doing business with y'all.
Then, in the beginning of 2020, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood received 10 Oscar nominations. And though yes, the main victory at the Academy Awards went to Bong Joon-ho's Parasite, Quentin's film won a statuette for Best Production Design and Decorations.
This is the first Oscar and nomination for Barbara Ling, the second Oscar and 8th nomination for Nancy Haig.
That evening, Brad Pitt also celebrated as he received the first Oscar of his career.
I think it's time we give a little love to our stunt coordinators and our stunt crews.
It's interesting that Pitt celebrated the victory in the Best Supporting Actor category, despite the fact that he spent no less time on screen than DiCaprio.
Talking about? You're my stunt double. Come on now. Shit.
And while the main prize seemed to be taken out from Quentin's nose, his sadness didn't last long. Certainly not longer than 2 weeks. On the 22nd of February, the director received a much more important prize. In Tel Aviv, Daniela bore him a son. The boy was called Leo. In honor of Daniela's grandfather, not the actor who played Rick Dalton. Fatherhood is a new era in the life of the director and will definitely affect his future art. We shouldn't look for new projects from Tarantino anytime soon. The potential remake of Star Trek seems to have been canceled, and the only real option seems to be the miniseries of Bounty Law.
I can tell you chapter and verse about his show Bounty Law. I know everything there is to know about it. I even wrote 5 episodes of Bounty Law.
Brought to you by Red Apple Cigarettes. Take a bite and feel all right. Take a bite of a Red Apple.
The director continues to insist that his 10th film will be his final one.
And I think that 10th movie would be smaller and a little bit more epilogue.
So all we can do now is continue to enjoy his fresh articles on the New Beverly website and hope for a director's cut of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But is that so bad? In Tarantino's case, the waiting was always worth it. Plus, now we have the opportunity to rewatch his films another 100 times.
I got the cock-doodle devil in my left hand. I got the balls of the Lord in my right hand. In my teeth, I got the clit for the mother of man. I eat the soul with a spoon in a star the land. I've been a wall, all down with dirt, a brain awash. In my soul, a hearse up in gas, with the new air up in gas, with the new air.
So bring home a 6-pack of Southern hospitality. Bring home a 6-pack of old Chattanooga beer.
Snake in a fist fight, and there ain't nothing that I done has felt so right. I've been slow-mo to romance. I flipped my hat and then I told my pants.
Take a bite and feel all right.
All right, this cigarette tastes like fucking shit. And by the way, who chose this photo, all right? I have a double chin, all right? Nobody notices that crap.
All